So here we are again. Welcome back to part 5 of the Gentoo handbook and installing Gentoo. This will be hopefully the last video. All I have done here is we have done an emerge avuND with a capital N, capital D on that. What that is doing is looking to ask verbose and update, look for new uses, and also go deep on the dependencies. Let me double check, make sure that our network is still looking good. Yeah, we got a ping that's still working, so that means our network's good. We're going to say yes to this, and it's going to start grabbing things. Now, what I wanted to show you, and this is why I wanted to go ahead and bring this up right away, is that this tail-f var log, we want to go into another console. Please turn that off, wife, because I am trying to do a video. Sorry about that. My wife is right next to me with her computer, and don't you just hate those stupid websites you go to that just start playing some crap. So anyway, we log into here. And let me minimize this again. And we can do a tail-f/var log, and let's see what's there. The emerge fetch log. Now this is really handy because you can actually see what it's downloading at the time in real time, and it's really useful for when you're at a command line interface and you want to know what's going on. So this is, as I said, downloading it in real time. We can bounce back to the other console with an Alt F1. We can see that it's compiling already some of the packages. So it's got that first package and it's compiling it. If we go back to here, you can see that you're still downloading all those packages that you need. We're going to Control C that for now because I want to show you that you can also use that tail-f, and I didn't want to go that far, var log. And you will see that there is also another log file, which I believe is the emerge.log. And this is really handy because when you're doing a lot of compiles in the command line interface and you want to know where exactly you're at, it's not like you have your little console window that shows you at the top that you're on one of 300, 500, of 700, etc., etc. But if you look at your var log emerge.log with the tail-f, you can see and have an update that you're doing one of 231 messages right now, and as that compiles and installs, it will go on and on. We're going to leave that one going. We're going to go to another console with Alt F3, log in again as root for now, and we'll do that. I don't think I can do it. I have to type it all out again. tail-f/var log emerge-fetch, and you can see that we're still downloading programs. And now what's nice about this is you can bounce back and forth between the two of these. In the first console, you can see your compiling going on. In the second console, you can see that we're on one of 231 packages. And in the third console, you can see that we are still downloading applications so that it can continue to compile. Now, I'm going to wait and let it kind of go for a while, and I'm going to pause it here, and maybe I'll bounce back in after a couple packages have installed so you can see what those logs should continue to look like and get an idea of them. Real quick, for those of you who are wondering, I went ahead and stopped it and started because I wanted to make sure I had that time feature set up so that it would tell us how long it actually took us to do an emerge update world the very first time. So I'm starting it again and getting that going. Now my logs are still going, so you can see here, for instance, start emerge on December 19th, 2013 at 23:35. That is not the correct time. That's probably UTC. I'll need to fix my time again. But it is doing 1 of 231, and if we go to number 3, it is checking all of the different files that it may need to download and should start going again. Now when it's finished, it'll just stop and it's good to go. And these will continue to compile. So until we get to the end, I will pause once more. So we're just checking in real quick to see how things are going. Compiling is still going along, as you can see by my time stamp down here. We've gone probably about 3.5–4 hours into the compiling phase here. Let me just minimize real quick, and if we look at the second console screen, this is where it comes in really handy if you're looking at that emerge log with the tail-f, because it shows that we are at 140 of 231 packages and we're moving along. So it's getting there, but it's still got a long way to go. Looks like we've got another 71 packages or so before 71. Man, I can't add. No, 60, 91. There we go. For some reason I was adding 4 and 3. Goofy me. Anyway, it's been sitting here. I've been staring at it, checking on it every once in a while, making sure it's still going along, and it's still compiling, no errors. Some of the things that it did need to compile took a long time, like GCC recompiles and sets itself up. But as I said, we'll continue this going. I've got the timer going on it, so we'll find out once it's all done how long it really took to do this sort of an update. And then once this completes, we'll check it all out and we'll go from there. I'll go ahead and pause for now. Okay, so we actually had a failure here. It's not too often that this happens, but it looks like X11 miscellaneous shared MIME info failed. So what I'm going to do here is see if I can figure out what went wrong, fix it, and I'll let you know in case this happens to you as well. So when something like this fails and it says that it failed in the configuration stage, it's best to run it by itself. And what we find out here, let me get rid of that. What we find out here is it says checking for XML parser configure error. XML parser Perl module is required for this init tool. What we need to do then is install the XML parser. So let's do an emerge-s on XML, which is going to search for applications that have XML in them. Hopefully there's not too many. If there are, we will have to try maybe searching on parser. Ooh, that's scary. There's a lot of stuff with XML. Let's check out parser and see if we can narrow our search down a little bit better. That's still just as scary, but let's just kind of take a quick gander up through here. And it said it was a Perl issue, so we can kind of ignore these because these are PHP. And here is where we get to the Perl. So there's an XML-parser in Perl. Right here we see it at the top. And it says it's installed, which is interesting because if that's the case, then that shouldn't be a problem. What I'm going to do real quick is reinstall it. XML parser emerge -v XML-parser. Now I didn't use the ask flag because well, maybe I should have. No builds. Did I misspell that? Let's see here. Pair XML parser. That's PHP. Yeah, let's emerge dash s xml dash par. See if we can get that. What I'm going to do here, oh, there it is there. So emerge dash, I'm going to do an AV anyway, xml dash parser. That's probably my fault. Yep. Whenever you're installing a package, it is not case sensitive to search for it. It is case sensitive when you go to install it. So we're going to tell it to reinstall that package. It should go very quickly because Perl, they're just scripts, so it shouldn't take too much. Well, there it is, installing it again. Now let's try to do the shared MIME info again, which it'll go ahead and do the configuration, and we'll see if we get through that problem. Otherwise it will fail again at the same spot. And it does not look like it's going to fail. So for some reason the XML parser, even though it was installed, needed to be reinstalled. Sometimes that happens with Perl scripts, and I may have to run. There's a Perl, I think, update program that reinstalls all the Perl after you've done some updates, and because we are doing updates of the system and the world on a new build, that probably needs to get done. So I'm going to look into that real quick, and then I'll come back and let you know what it was I needed to run to reinstall the Perl, and we'll go from there. So if you run Perl, let me get this back in here. This is what I figured out. If you run Perl-cleaner by itself, it gives you these options. Now I did a -p to pretend, but then there's down here a -- all modules, which will rebuild all Perl modules. So since we've done evidently something that has done something we don't want to happen to the Perl modules, we're going to run Perl cleaner -- all modules and let it go ahead and rebuild all of those modules. And after that's done, I'll go ahead and start back up the world update, and we'll kind of go from there. So let's see, we'll let this go through, and once it's done updating all the Perl modules, which shouldn't take long. I mean, it looks like there's a lot there. There's 54, but it should take less than 30 seconds to a minute per build. So we'll be back in another 10-15 minutes hopefully. Okay, so now we are finishing up on the last package. Now whether or not we really needed to do that or not, I don't know. Sometimes it's better to be safe than sorry. If one Perl package needed to be recompiled, it's most certain that multiple may need to be recompiled. So now that we've done that, and we know that the offending package that had broke is fixed, we go right back to emerge -avu N world. Get that searching for what packages we need to install. Should be between 87 and 90, I think, left on that list. Luckily they're all downloaded, at least the packages are downloaded, so that part doesn't need to happen. We need to keep moving on so we can get this done. There we are. We have 80. Look at that, 87 packages, 8 upgrades, 71 new, and 8 reinstalls. So we're going to go ahead and tell that yes, and I'm going to say no because I want to put that time feature in there. Now I'm not sure if that worked for the last bit, because that number that came back was extraordinarily large and way too much. It probably went for about 3.5 to 4 hours, if I recall. I think we started that around 4:30 my time, and it died, of course, around 8:20 or so. And we have these last bits, so it gives you an idea. I started this whole process around 11, I believe. So in real time, it's taken me about 9.5, almost 10 hours just to get this far. And all of these put together have been about 2.5 hours in length of video recording. And this has pretty much been, except for skipping out a lot of the compiling that I paused on, or if I ran into some problems and had to pause just long enough to get my network back up and running again. Those are the only things that have kind of hindered us. But for the most part, we've installed Gentoo, if you want to count just from boot to boot, in about 2 hours or so, which isn't too bad. But Gentoo is a lot more than just getting it to the command line. You do have to make sure that everything's up to date, and once your system is fully up to date with this emerge world, then you know you're going to want to do one more emerge sync and then do another test run, which we'll do after all this is done, and then maybe one last reboot to make sure everything's good. And at that point, you're at your Gentoo system, and then it's time to decide whether or not you want to put a GUI interface on it and put XFCE or KDE or GNOME or OpenBox or any of those types of things in there, whether or not you want to install Apache or a streaming audio server. It just depends what your purpose is for Gentoo that you'd want to do next. Now, I'm going to go ahead and pause the video for now, and hopefully these last 87 packages go by without incident, and then we will see what we see. Thank you guys for watching so far, though, and hopefully this is being useful. I will probably tomorrow or the next day do this one more time, except without all of the talk about the handbook. And I'll go through the Gentoo Linux. It's over here. I still have it up. This section here. What I'll do tomorrow is, now that I've gone through the whole handbook up to the point where you install everything and set it up for your own specifications, tomorrow I'll do the Gentoo Linux quick install guide. It says it's for x86, but you can change it very easily so that works for yourself in a 64-bit environment. And as I said before, if you don't care about all the reasoning of why you do certain things, this just tells you real quick, bang, 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 this is what you do to get it all up and running. While this compiles, I just want to talk a few more things before I do pause about what we've run into. Everything was very smooth. The only issue that I ran into so far has been when we rebooted into the system. For some reason, the network controller, although the module was running properly, was not coming up correctly. The second thing, which is actually the first thing that I screwed up on, was before we exited out of our CH root to reboot, we should have made sure that we reset the password again for the root user. That I had to go back in there to fix. And of course, the third thing that we ran into was just that little snag that we had there. So far, everything else is going really well and very smoothly. We'll go ahead and pause now, and we're already on package 8. These dev Perl files, they're so lightweight, a lot of that stuff's going to go through very quickly. So I am not going to guesstimate, because you could have, of 87 packages, 86 of them fly through in 20 minutes and have one that just kills you because it's a huge package that needs updated. For instance, most of those 4 hours before, I would guarantee that GCC alone probably took at least an hour to maybe an hour and a half on its own. And when you did the glibc libraries and all that, that probably took another hour, hour and a half. And the rest of those 100 or so packages probably went through in an hour by itself. Yeah, so you just never know sometimes. I'm going to go ahead and pause it for now, and we'll be back here in a moment. Alright, the last of those updates have completed. Let's go ahead and minimize this. So we started this thing around 12:44 my time. It is now 22:44. How about that? That's exactly 10 hours that it took us to complete this. And of course we're not even completed, we just have the basics. Now you'll see that real time here says 124 minutes for those last 87 packages, and those first 140 some odd packages took roughly around 4 hours. So it took about 6 hours to kind of update everything. What we're going to do now is, it says we have 4 config files that we need to look at, and we have 2 news items. So we're going to do an etc-update. That's going to list those. We're going to look at number 1, which is the local gen. Now if you remember, we had enabled EN, and it wants the English locales, and it wants us to log those out, and we don't want to do that, no. So what we'll do here is we're going to say delete the update and keep the original. This is why it's important to look at them and see what it's doing, because we don't want to change that and delete that. And we've got the next one, rc.conf. I'll bet you it wants to undo our changes there too. So if we look at this, it says, yep, it wants to take away our RC interactive equals yes. And so for that, we will do another 2 to delete the update and keep the original. And we have the hardware clock. I'll bet you all of these are exactly, those are all the files we edited. It wants to take out local and go to UTC, and no, we do not want to do that. So that's why it's important to look at these, make sure some of them make sense, some of them don't. Now I went ahead and had attempted, when I was trying to figure out what was wrong with why the network adapter wasn't working, I created this modules. We really don't need it because with the gen kernel it detects it and installs it anyway, but it doesn't hurt to leave it in there. So we're just going to leave that too. So we're going to tell it to ignore those updates. Now it said there were a couple news items, so let's do an eSelect news and list. And we see that it talks about the grub2 migration and the Python exec package move, which if we do eSelect news read 7, just to go ahead and say we looked at them, it's pretty much just telling us that it's going to grub2, which I think I mentioned and talked about in an earlier video, which I was kind of upset because I've always praised it, because I always thought grub legacy was, it just worked really well, easy to configure, made sense. I don't like the configuration files for grub2. They just aren't that user friendly. And then of course we want to read that last one, which talks about the Python update. Yeah, it looks like maybe it's moving to a new location. It's okay. Anyway, we've got it all done. So what we want to do real quick, we're going to do another emerge sync. We're going to let that go through. It's going to just make sure all the packages are up to date. When that's done, I'm going to reboot the computer or the virtual machine here, and we're going to do another emerge world just to make sure everything is up to date and good to go. And honestly, after that, we've pretty much completed what we need to do to install a basic Gentoo system. It took us 10 hours from start to finish, not including our final checks here, but otherwise it's pretty much done. So we're just going to do a reboot. And while that reboots, it'll probably give me my sound error, because every time that it starts up, it kind of blows up something with the sound. So get rid of that. Nothing I need to worry about. And it's going to start up here in 2 seconds. Now it does take a little bit of time because when you do use the gen kernel, it scans for all hardware and attempts to load the modules if it finds it. Which, for a beginner and you're not sure what you need to load, this is the best way to do it. Get rid of that sound problem. Those sound problems are an issue between the simple screen recorder recording my sound for what we're doing here and the fact that I've turned off sound on the virtual machine because I don't want it conflicting. Now we'll go ahead and log into root. We are good. Let's do an if config, make sure we have, although I did see the network pop up and that looks good. We're using that right now. So our last emerge -avu capital ND world, we're going to run that. That's going to take just a few moments to go through. If all is well, and I doubt they've updated anything in the last 10 hours, but it's always possible there's one or two items, it should come back and say your system is up to date. And with that, we have our Gentoo based system. At this point, if you look at the handbook, it says what to do next. And if we get back up into here, I actually have to scroll back down because I had done some changes there. Oh, we're in the quick install. Move back one. Okay. So now we've got everything there. Congratulations, you now have a working Gentoo system. Where to go from here? It talks about some things that you can do. Your Gentoo wikis. Now is when you decide whether or not you want to install your GUI interface. You have meta packages for things like that. For instance, if you wanted to do the KDE meta, you could do an emerge dash, I always do AV KDE dash meta with that, and it would list everything you need to do to install KDE, or if you wanted to do GNOME, you could use GNOME or XFCE, etc., etc. As it says right here, the last merge async was, well, that's not proper. 1 year, 0 days, 45 minutes, 36 minutes ago. We just did an emerge. I bet you my time and date stamp's all screwed up. Calculating dependencies done. Total packages, 0 packages, nothing to merge. It's good to go. And let's just do a quick date and see what's wrong here. Friday, December 9th. Why is it say it's 2014? That's not proper. Let's change that. 12, 19. Remember, it's month, day, hour, 22, 52, and year. 22, 50, 2013. There we go. Now it's the proper year. That's why it says it was a year ago. That doesn't make any sense. Now let's do a quick emerge. Although, yeah, all that should matter there is that it says that there's no packages left to do. And that is Gentoo. Now, as I said, this is 5 parts going roughly on 2.5 hours, 2 hours really, and then a half hour to kind of set up everything at the end, which then took, of course, a lot more, 6 to 8 hours to complete. But well worth it. Now this, although we did it in a virtual box, you can do the same thing in a regular machine with, and like I said, it's best when you're starting out with Gentoo to use the gen kernel and the Gentoo sources until you're more familiar with your hardware. And at this point, for instance, we could go ahead and rebuild another kernel if we wanted to and do it the manual method so that you could go ahead and set up just the drivers you needed. You could also download the vanilla kernel at this point and do the same thing. And you know that you have this already built kernel that you know will work. So if anything goes wrong while you play with it, you can always bounce back. You put a second entry in your grub for your new kernel, for instance, and you can play with it, try it out, and do different things. Well, thank you very much for joining. As I did say too, I will be going through in the next day or so the Gentoo quick install, just to try to make this go through like a quick and dirty, just get her done type thing. And I hope, if all goes well, I will surprise you guys. If you're still watching this, of course, and listening to it, I hope to surprise you guys for Christmas, and this be your Christmas gift to y'all. I'll put this up, all 5 parts, and even a dirty quick install on Christmas, if I can get to it without the family screaming at me about everything else that happens on that fun day. So until next time, whether it's morning, evening, noon, or night, thanks for watching. I hope you're having a good one. Merry Christmas to everybody. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for all your support, and we'll talk to y'all later. Bye.